Gov website. Please be advised the meeting is recorded and will be made available via the YouTube app as soon as possible. The members of this committee are vitally important, as each one of you understand that you represent the stakeholders in teen driving, traffic safety education in this state. Your input is critical, and we welcome all kinds of comments, suggestions, etc. throughout the meeting. And we will strive to end the meeting at noon because we understand everyone has other prior engagements. I will now read the ethics statement. Committee members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflict of interest as we handle the work of this committee. Does any member of the committee know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting as related on the agenda? Okay. If not, do not hesitate to announce that as we go. If so, please state them for the record. Appreciate you not having any. If during the course of the meeting you become aware, of course, please bring that to our attention. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on that matter. The purpose of the North Carolina Driving Education Advisory Committee shall be to advise and make recommendations to the State Board of Education through the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction on the implementation of the North Carolina Driver Education Strategic Plan and other issues related to driver education and traffic safety. Our mission statement composes of experienced and diverse perspectives. The Driver Education Advisory Committee provides research-based information and recommendations to the State Board of Education to implement and maintain the Driver Education Strategic Plan. The advisory advocates for certified professional teachers, highly qualified instruction, and up-to-date curricula to prepare each student to be an informed and responsible driver. By now, each of you should have had an opportunity to review the minutes from the November meeting and today's agenda. The floor will entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the November 24th, 2024 meeting. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Kevin. A motion to approve. Do we have a second? Thank you, sir. Appreciate that, Mr. Jordan. And any discussion? No discussion. Right. The floor will entertain a motion to accept the agenda for today's meeting. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Sherry. And do we have a second? Second. Thank you. And any discussion on the agenda for today's meeting? No. Hearing none. Ms. Taylor, would you do the roll call and record the vote?
Dr. Cheryl Leonard,
Here.
Eddie Jordan, Tony Moore, Dr. Brandy Gill, Kevin Harrison,
Yes.
Sherry Van Elsen, Terry Fuller,
Yes.
Daniel Carter,
Yes.
Tanya Faulkner, Devin Tanner, Marsha Kelly, Bobby Dixon,
Yes.
Lieutenant Kinley Russell, Chad Aharon,
Yes.
Asim McGill,
Yes.
Dr. Justin Owens,
Good morning, President.
Kella Hatcher,
Yes.
Ebony Baker,
Yes.
and Josh Norris.
We have a forum,
Yes, you have a quorum.
and both minutes and the agenda have been approved, and we thank you. I will now turn it over to the DPI guru, Mr. Carl Logan, for his presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Leonard, and good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to address you all this morning. We have some interesting and great news that we would like to share with you today. First, I want to start out very quickly here. The Driver Education Advisory Committee Membership Administration, pursuant to State Board Policy ADVS 008, DPI must submit membership applications or updates to the State Board of Education, including the approval of the chair. There are two types of members: the outside the agency partners, and these are selected by 8 agency partners, and then there are agencies that may select, those agencies may select or interchange representatives at any time without additional approval from the State Board of Education. And they do not have term limits. The remaining board members are subject to annual State Board of Education approval and term limits. 2 of those members have terms that are ending on June the 30th. Before the next meeting, I'll need to know who is planning to move forward to the next fiscal year. So just let me know in email or a phone call. Thank you very much. As far as DPI leadership, probably flip this. There we go. As far as DPI leadership, we're extremely excited to introduce the new leadership at DPI and extend the opportunity for them to share any comments. And I will introduce them, beginning my immediate manager, who's sitting to my right, of the Driver Education and Traffic Safety section, Ms. Rachel Finley. Ms. Rachel Finley is the Senior Director, School Nutrition and Auxiliary Services. She replaces the retired Dr. Lynn Harvey, and she's new to the DPI family, but she's not new to traffic safety, as she is the wife of Dr. Daniel Finley of the Institute of Transportation Research and Education at North Carolina State University. Ms. Finley, would you like to share any words with us?
Sure. I would like to thank you all for all you do, because I have a student who's starting the driver portion of driver's education on Sunday. So I thank all of you for what you do to educate the educators, right, that teach children like my own. So thank you.
And not new to DPI, but has assumed a new role as Chief Operations Officer, Dr. Derek Jordan. Dr. Jordan, would you like to come and share anything, any comments? I probably should have tipped you off, shouldn't I? Don't want to make the chief mad. Thank you, Dr. Jordan. And also, returning to DPI and has assumed the role of Deputy State Superintendent, Dr. Maria Petrie Martin, who is well aware of this body. She is a charter member of the Driver Education Advisory Committee. Dr. Petrie Martin.
I do want to bring the group half of superintendent is not able to coordinate his committee at he certain spur and is also sending effects. Thank you. It was a few years ago that but it's been exciting to sit up to see how far it's come. So thank you for inviting me to talk.
With the leadership that I have, I can't fail. So thank you all for being here. They are extremely busy. I told her I was just stoked that they would be able to come in and just share a few moments with us. So thank you, and drop in anytime. Thank you so much. Chair Leonard, if I could do this, since I made the agenda. We have the DMV DPI subcommittee that what I've done is I've kind of squeezed them into this block to save a little bit of time. So if you don't mind, I'm going to add this in here. We've had a chance to do a little bit of collaborating over the past few weeks with the assistance of our leadership here at DPI regarding the driver education completion certificate. A person who is 15 years of age but less than 18 may obtain a driver license a learner's permit if they pass one of two courses. The course that's being taught in our public schools or a commercial driving school. Recent discussions by the agencies have led to the initial steps to align the programs. So DPI and DMV have collaborated to create a streamlined driver education completion certificate, which actually combined 3 forms. The form and the FAQs have been mailed to all public schools and the commercial schools in North Carolina. These are effective immediately. All schools may continue using their existing supplies and then begin using new forms. And note that no longer will printed forms be issued by either agency. So all schools will be able to print the new form directly for your students as needed. A special thanks to Commissioner Wayne Goodwin and his staff, 2 of which are here today, Mr. Fuller and Mr. Fink. And at DPI, Mr. Jeff Coltrane, Director of Government Affairs and DPI, and the leadership staff at DPI, including those here today. So thank you so much. I will yield for any questions, comments regarding that. Hearing none, Dr. Leonard, I will turn it back over to you.
So we've been very fortunate to have, as we announced to many of you that are serving on this council, that you come from different aspects of driver education and transportation. And so one of the things that Carl and I had talked about was how do we educate everybody on those nuances? We see each other, we talk to each other very briefly during the time that we're meeting, but for those that are online and that don't have the opportunity to meet and talk with everybody in person, we thought it would be a good idea to have our partners speak to who they are, where they are, and what their agency is about, and how their agency contributes to the whole of this advisory council. And often when we do these things in other groups, it's amazing the collaboration that occurs and over time becomes what something like this advisory council has become and how things get moving on quickly. So with that, we have two presentations today from our stakeholders, one from the Department of Insurance and one from Department of Education. And so the first presentation will be from Marsha Kelly from the Department of Insurance.
Sorry, I didn't turn on the mic. Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here on behalf of Commissioner Mike Halsey. And one of the things that he was the brainchild of what I do. When he took office back in 2017, he saw that the most people that we regulate, most of the people that are out in the public have no idea that there's anything available to them through the Department of Insurance. And so he created a group called the Regional Directors, which I'm part of. There are 10 of us now. Each of us has a group of counties that we service. And I supervise that group. And I was very fortunate to be appointed to this committee, and I'm excited to be here today because one of the things that we have done at the Department of Insurance is we have a new program for teen drivers that educates them on insurance. And you guys with the Department of Public Education do a great job of teaching them how to drive. But 9 times out of 10, when they hit the road, they have no idea what to do if something happens. And if they get in an accident or they get a ticket or anything like that, they're completely clueless. And so we started this pilot program. We're actually, right now we are in Orange County, Alamance County, and Durham County Public Schools. And we have been working through their cohorts to get this presentation available to driver's ed cohorts throughout those counties. We are currently working towards getting throughout the entire state doing the same type of presentation as the kids. We serve as a guest speaker at these cohorts in Orange and Alamance and Durham County. It has become a regular occurrence. Our regional director there, her name is Mary Needham, and she's actually been the one who has really spearheaded this the presentation to the kids, and it's a very kid-friendly. I mean, gosh, you talk about insurance, and people go, oh, "Gosh, let's take a nap right now because it's time for snooze." But for she was a former educator herself, and so the presentation is very, very kid friendly. She's able to do it both via Zoom, Teams, or in person. And so today I'm just gonna, I know I only have 10 minutes, so I'm gonna zip through it so that you guys can see like the Reader's Digest version of what she does. And all of us are gonna be doing this. She's not the only one. We're trying to get into every single county. Okay. Okay. You shouldn't have told me that, Carl. Carl just told me I had more time. So maybe I won't have to zip through this quite as quickly as I thought I did. But the program I'm showing now is one that we do if we were doing it in person. We also use this one again online where the kids can respond via the chat box within the online system. And you guys all know Commissioner Causey, and this is his, he's starting his 3rd term, and we're excited to see what's we're going to do in the next 4 years. He's very committed to education, and not just for teen drivers, but for all drivers. He's committed to education of every aspect of insurance, because most people are a little bit ill-advised sometimes when it comes to their insurance. I'm going to go through this really, really quickly because I don't want to bore everybody with the details, but when you're talking to kids, they need to know what an insurance policy is. They need to know how an insurance policy works, and they need to understand that it's a contract. And so we talk about auto insurance being a contract between them and their insurance carrier. And as you can see, it is geared toward kids, so bear with me on that. So one of the things we also talk about is how confusing insurance can be, especially for, you think about a 16-year-old. What are they thinking about? They're not thinking about insurance. They're thinking about their day. They're thinking about school, the game next week, or whatever's going on. They're not thinking about what the ramifications would be if they were to get into an accident. So all of these things are things that they need to know about should something happen when they're on the road. And so they need to be aware of all of these terms. And what we do with them is we go through them, and this is each person will have a little sheet that they're handed, and they're asked which one of these words matches that explanation there. And so it makes them think about it. It makes them think about, okay, if an individual who sells insurance, oh, that's got to be an agent. And then we go through it, and it's interactive. So they have to actually do something while we're doing this presentation to them. So as you're saying to them, maximum value to be derived from a policy, they have to tell us, what is that? So it makes them think about what these things are. And that, in our opinion, helps them to remember that whenever it comes time for them to have to remember that. And so we go through each one of these things individually, and they have to write it or either put it in the chat box, depending on what type of presentation that we're doing. And you can see each one of these are done individually. And then we click on the answer. We also go into why do they need it? And most of them don't realize that it's the law and they have to have it. And we got a little bit of a problem there, but that's okay. We'll fix that. But we go through why it's important, what North Carolina requires with liability coverage and uninsured coverage, and what is the difference between liability and comprehensive. And then we talk about why is it so expensive. We all know insurance is expensive, and most people don't realize it. It's part of the economy, and it's affected by inflation. But there's many other things, many other factors that cause rates to be higher. Increasing repair cost, just an example, when we talk about how much it costs to insure a newer model vehicle versus an older model vehicle. The old model is just 4 wheels and a running board, as they say. And the new vehicles, have cameras and they have sensors and they have all sorts of craziness in them and computers. And so a bumper of yesterday cost a whole lot more or a whole lot less than a bumper of today. And so that also goes into the cost of insurance. And then we talk a lot about, oh gosh, that doesn't look right. But we talk a lot about distracted driving. And in this module, what we ask them to do, we say, okay, we're going to give you 30 seconds. And I want you to write down in 30 seconds everything that you can think of that would be a distraction while you're driving. And then we click it and it starts clicking down and then they're writing. And so in that 30 seconds, they're to tell us how many things that they can think of that would be a distraction. And we all know how important the knowledge of distracted driving is and how it can be very devastating and it can be quite deadly actually. So at the end of that 30 seconds, it won't let me, there it goes. And then we talk about each one of the distracted driving, and we talked about the things that they think are distracted driving. We actually had one kid said, I'm watching a Netflix movie. I'm like, do you really watch Netflix movies when you're driving the car? So, you would be surprised at how many kids think that that's okay, that you can put your little phone up there and, watch a movie while you're driving down the road. So we stick little things in there to make them laugh as well. Like, we talk about, loving up on your girlfriend or your boyfriend. Of course, in this picture, it's an old couple, which they always get a good laugh out of that. But, we try to make it so that it's fun for them. And then we talk about the statistics. And this was a great statistic. At 55 miles per hour, sending a text is like driving the length of a football field. And if you think about that's a long way, and you can think about how many things that you could come in contact with in that period of time. And so we don't try to scare them, but we try to give them a good working knowledge of what the consequences are from those things. And then we go into the cost of natural disasters, trees falling on cars and that kind of thing. And then we talk about fraud. And fraud is, people don't realize that fraud is rampant in our state on every level of insurance, not just on auto. And we talk about it being a felony. lying about what happened, lying about your, the event, exaggerating the claim, all those things are considered fraud. And then we talk about what are the factors that influence, and this is, I mean, I'm really going through this really quickly, so you guys bear with me, but we talk about all these things so that they understand. And then at the very end, we give them a pop quiz and we see what they remember. And so it's all interactive. And then we go through the Safe Driver Incentive Plan, which is how they, as safe drivers, can save their parents money. And so this way they understand how much it's going to cost them if they get a ticket, how much it's going to cost them if they get a second ticket, how much it's going to cost them if they get caught driving while impaired. So these are all things that they need to know about. And most times they're not even told that. And then it talks about what they can do to keep from having to pay the highest amount. So the no at faults, not getting tickets, that kind of thing. So we go through the whole thing and then they have a quiz at the end. And it's interactive. If we're in person, we do it on a piece of paper and then we talk about it. And if it's online, they do it in the chat box. And then we actually do a role play with them, with 3 different people. We give them a scenario and ask them to respond with the things that they've learned within the presentation. And this is just that activity. It's kind of really hard to go through it now because it takes a little bit of time. And then it talks about what you need, how to get it, who to talk to, and then of course tells about the commissioner. But an additional one that we do at the end is, and I'm not going to go through that today, is if it's close to prom time, we also have several modules that we talk about prom time and the things that happen during prom time, because 9 times out of 10 you always hear about somebody getting an accident on prom night. And so we go into that as well. And so this is a way for us to kind of dovetail with the regular driver's education program so that they learn about the whole picture, not just the driving down the road, but what happens when they have an accident and what to do after that accident. And give you one quick example, and this happened to one of our colleagues. She lives on a busy road up in Davidson County area. And there was a young woman who got in an accident right in front of her house. And she ran out, she was outdoors when it happened, and she ran out there to make sure she was okay. And the girl was trying to leave the scene of the crime, or the scene of the accident. And she's like, no, if you leave, that means it's a crime. And she didn't know as a 16-year-old driver that if she left, she was going to be charged as a criminal. So those are just some examples about kids that don't understand the whole ramification of driving and insurance. And so we're just trying to dovetail off what the public information or public education are doing with driver's ed so that they understand the business side of driving a car. Thank you. Any questions about our program?
I do.
Okay.
Are they going to move it to other school systems?
We are working desperately to do that. We're trying to contact all of we don't know the best way to handle that as far as who to contact. We've been going to the schools individually and then going to the counties individually. So one of the things that I was hoping to do is to find out the best avenue for us to get into each county.
But just right here, sitting here, there's 40 school systems. You could reach out to either of our driving schools. I'd love to have it. Not speaking for
Yes.
Mr. Moore, but
Wonderful.
so reach out
Yes.
to us. We'd be glad to.
Yes, and we have a regional director in every single county of the state of North Carolina, and we would love to have this in every single county. Yes.
And I might ask,
I had 2 comments.
Okay.
First off, I would explain to them it takes 3 years before a person has to charge you in an accident. 3 years. Key. And then the second is when you have to call by law the police.
Okay.
Those 2 things. Add those 2 things because few people know when they're required by law.
Okay.
And it makes it a little questionable because it says if somebody's injured, a person has 3 years to say they're injured. I had a person do that.
Interesting. Okay.
Thank you.
I also might offer, Governor's Highway Safety works closely with the high schools, and we have a contract with the North Carolina High School Athletic Association. And we have an opportunity to go into each school after having worked with many of the superintendents of each of the areas. And so we too used to do educational programs, and we would partner with our local law enforcement to go into those high schools. And for me, as an example, I have 5 aunts that are all middle school teachers, and they've all retired at this point in their career. And we knew we always had those 5 high schools, middle schools that we could go into. But when you compare that with across the state, that's not even a drop in the bucket. So many of our law enforcement have that same type of scenario. So they keep saturating the same place every year, hoping to highlight a student or two to get the message. When we began partnering with the High School Athletic Association, many of the high schools have what in our group called dream teams that focus on traffic safety. So having peers talk about the very things that you're talking about, what we have found resonates a great deal as opposed to somebody my age or, the like person, or somebody coming in a uniform and talking to them. And so we want to offer that up to you to have a partnership like that, but also knowing that having a variety of different people come in, and those, for example, like the insurance company or law enforcement, to come in to those forums to talk about what the law is and what happens and things that most teens would never even think about, because the unfortunate part is those that they use as mentors that they see every day drive, that help them drive, unfortunately don't always know either.
Right.
And so, we hear about that all the time in the paper. So anyway,
That would be
There's-
great. Thank you.
anybody else?
And I'll be happy to leave the copy of the presentation. So if somebody wants to go through the entire thing, they can. But I'll be happy to do that.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Carl.
Are you talking about the PowerPoint that you just gave? So we can distribute it?
We would prefer you not to distribute it out to the public because, it's still a pilot program right now. But, for those of us that are in this room, I'd be happy for everybody to just take a look at it and so they could look at it a little deeper than what I really flew through it today. But we would hope that that we would be able to be the ones that were able to present it. But doing, what you suggested is also a great idea. So that's something that we can definitely look into.
Well, I would say that that's a vessel. I think we still would want you all to present, but it would at least provide you an opportunity where the door would open more than maybe a select group that we used to have and that you might have as well, but maybe opening the door for another opportunity to reach as many counties all simultaneously. How many instructors in the pilot project do you have right now?
There's just 10 of us.
10 of you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Well,
And
there's
we
only
do-
100 counties, so.
Right. There's only 100 counties, but yeah. And Mary Needham, our regional director that has been doing it the most, she does about 2 a week. And most oftentimes they are virtual. And so she'll go in person sometimes, but most times they are virtual. And it works really well virtually.
And I know real-time virtual is always a good thing, but I'm wondering if you could make a copy of that and then show that and not be real-time, but just have a video of that presentation.
I think we have actually started working on that because I know she's been asked to record it. I believe it was Orange County that recorded her, but we can do that as well.
I think the only downside to that I see is that the interactivity between a presenter and those in the room, you wouldn't have.
Right. And it does make a difference. I was fortunate to be able to watch Mary do it. And she's so natural because she's an educator. And And I welcome any of you all, if you wanted to go to any of her, if she has one that's coming up, I welcome you to go and log on and listen, because she does a really good job with it.
Can you let us know when that?
Sure,
is?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, when you and I had the conversation, I was ecstatic to find out that you all were doing this. So I'm glad that you're doing it and glad that you've gone so far with it. And just to echo some of the questions and comments regarding insurance, this is probably the one area of traffic safety that people know the least about is the insurance part. And that, my mind was racing there. It's like, okay, how do we get create professional development opportunities? Because our teachers need to know and understand this as well, because it can get infused in all parts of the curriculum that they handle. So I'm looking forward to continue working with you on this and what we can do for you, and then also what you can do for us, or the agency can do for us on disseminating this type of information. So I'm really glad that we had this great idea, Cheryl.
Thank you for allowing me to share.
Absolutely. I'm very interested in statistics and all that. So I don't want to put you on the spot with anything right now, but we will be contacting you for that. We need, again, provide our over 1,000 teachers out there with up-to-date information that they can go to, or where we can steer them to get information like this. So, but it is great that you all are out there firsthand doing this. My thoughts were also when you said virtual, it said, the districts or some of the classrooms can link together and make multiple classrooms where they log into the same presentation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of time compound there. So we have lots of ideas here. So thank you for the presentation.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to share as much as I can. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes.
I think this will be an excellent way for us to dovetail off of the regular driver education.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you again.
My pleasure.
Our next speaker, unfortunately, has just notified us, and there was an emergency that he had in his family. So unfortunately, we will not be doing the next presentation from the North Carolina Driver and Traffic Safety Education Program. So I am now going to turn it over to Chad, who's our vice chairman, and to talk about the subcommittee updates, most particularly DMV traffic certification proposal.
All right. And before I start, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's all say happy birthday, Carl Logan, because today is Carl's birthday. So I'm sure he doesn't appreciate that, but he's 22 years old. So happy birthday, Carl. Happy birthday. All right. So this is actually recent legislative actions have impacted both DPI and DMV, with the reduction of administrative funding at DPI, which shifted the primary source of teachers to DMV, which is overwhelming to the DMV training staff and program in general. 40% of our school districts currently do not have source for teacher training. Our DMV partners are going to share a proposal for those districts. We invite the committee to weigh in during the Q&A period at the end of their presentation. And I really do hope that a lot of people do share, anything they're thinking about, because I hear all the time, yes, happy birthday. I do hear all the time that some counties are really, really, really struggling to get teachers. So hopefully we could come up with maybe a suggestion, couple of suggestions. All right, so first we have Terry Fuller, who I always enjoy getting Terry's emails. Mr. Fuller has worked for DMV for 20 years, serving in the driver license unit as an examiner, compliance chief examiner. All right, he also served with school bus and traffic safety as a driver education program specialist, and now as the manager of the unit. All right, Mr. Fuller, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Let me introduce John Fink, who is our lead DEPS, Driver Education Program Specialist. He's going to present to you a concept for a training opportunity to get some of the instructors certified now that the STEP program is no longer existed. John?
Morning to you all. I'm glad to be here and have this opportunity to present this to you. The overall crux here is that this is something we put together last year when DPI lost their STEP program funding as a way to sort of address the issue surrounding the lack of instructors, for lack of a better way to put it. As we all know, DPI's budget was cut in 23-24. That removed or suspended the funding for the STEP program. In partnership or with that conjunction, we did not receive, being a DMV, school bus and traffic safety, we did not receive any additional funds or positions to take on any sort of increased instructor training with DPI having lost their funding. That left the school bus and traffic safety basic driver education instructor course as what was then the only path towards instructor certification for DPI. And the interim since then, that has sort of gone away. As we discussed in the November meeting, when we looked over the feedback that we got from the 2024 training period, where we found the program essentially flooded with requests from DPI for slots in the commercial school training program. Every DPI slot that came in with an instructor request took a corresponding slot away from the commercial instructors. And so the feedback that we got was twofold. One, the commercial schools did not like the fact that they had lost slots in the commercial schools to DPI instructors. And then the DPI instructors, the feedback was overwhelming in that they were partly confused as to why they had to sit through a program that was geared towards teaching people how to own and operate their own private business or work for a private business, while they had to sit through all the administrative code classes and learn how to fill out the forms and all that stuff they were not going to do whenever they actually went out and taught for DPI. The other part of that is that essentially we are limited to the number of classes that we can actually offer, right? There are not but 78 DEPS positions statewide. The same folks that are charged with teaching the commercial school are also the folks that are charged to doing the school bus training and recertification for all the school districts across the state. With the current federal guidelines for entry-level driver training, if a school bus and traffic safety rep takes 2 candidates for driver training, it takes 4 of 5 work days to put those 2 people through the basics of driver training for school buses. So as always, the school bus training takes a huge chunk of our workload. So every time we offer one of these commercial school classes, it takes 2 weeks of our time, and then we get yelled at by the school systems for, why aren't you doing school bus driver training? Well, because we went and did driver education instructor training. So we are not in a position, given our staffing and budget, where we can add many more commercial classes. But what we can do under our administrative code is that we are allowed to certify instructor trainers to actually partner with, working with commercial schools to train driver education instructors, right? And so our outside the box proposal for this is to essentially work to sort of facilitate a partnership between DPI school systems and commercial schools that are willing to take on qualified DPI instructors to put them on the books as driver education instructors. And then that would let these instructors that on paper are partnered with these commercial schools, they can go train. You guys can do the STEP program with them if you want to. That gives you the flexibility to do your own training program on your own schedule. The other feedback that we get is that folks don't like whenever we have the commercial schools. We do them in the summer and June when the school system shut down. We get that, you know, it doesn't happen this. Can you do it this? Can you do it in the evening? Can you do it at our times? And we can't based off whatever we do with the schedule. But if you guys had your own instructors, in this case certified by DMV and school bus and traffic safety in partnership with the commercial school, that would let you go out and train your own people on your own schedule, on your own time, and make that happen. So I'm not going to go through all of the administrative code stuff. We would go cross-eyed if I sat here and read administrative code to you. But essentially, the gist of it is, and we've actually gone through this recently with Durham Public Schools, is that in the administrative code, it lets us waive a huge portion of what is required for instructor certification if the instructor is already certified as a driver education instructor by the State Board of Education. If they already have that 096 on their licensure, we get to waive essentially everything that gets them their initial certification as an instructor. That's part one, okay? Part two is that if they're going to become an instructor trainer in partnership with a commercial school, we can't waive any of that. And that's what's on the screen, okay? So we would need qualified people from the DPI LEAs. And this is where we're sort of, again, thinking outside the box. They have to have 5 consecutive years as an active licensed instructor. The administrative code is vague. It does not say what they have to be licensed as, right? It doesn't say have to be licensed by us, right? So we are saying that if you send us people that are, 5 consecutive years licensed by the State Board of Education to teach driver's ed, that checks that box, right? They have to submit an application for an instructor trainer license. They have to complete 2 hours of classroom observation. One of our folks has to come watch these people teach 2 hours of instruction, teaching other adults how to teach driver's ed. It's not in a classroom teaching kids. It's teaching adults how to teach driver's education. There also has to be 2 hours of observation of one of our folks coming to watch the candidate do in-car instruction of the same thing. Again, teaching adults how to teach other adults how to teach driver's education in a car. We can't waive that, right? So again, that's the chunk of the observation part of it. They have to complete the written test that has to be administered by us. Passing for this written test is an 80. They're allowed 1 retest. They also have to pass the Miller Road test given by us. They're allowed 1 retest there. These are the same qualifications anybody has to meet to be a driver education instructor that's certified by school bus and traffic safety. The admin code says they have to be recommended by a school bus and traffic safety representative. That's a fairly routine thing there, as long as the observations go well and they pass the test. And, there's no, flashing warning signs. There are no reasons why they can't be recommended. The instructor license, the instructor trainer license, rather, works the same way as any other license issued by school bus and traffic safety. It costs $16. It's essentially on paper good for 2 years. The only caveat is that all the instructor licenses expire whenever the business license that they're associated with expires. I know that sounds sort of weird. That's just how the administrative code is written. All the instructor license expire on the date that the business license that they're associated with expires. So that way the businesses only have to worry about 1 expiration date. So when I tell you that on paper they're good for 2 years for the first time, it may not be good for 2 years the first time. They're going to expire when the business license expires. But when they re-up the second time, it'll be good for 2 years. And it costs $16 every time they have to re-up the license. Anybody have any questions about that so far before I go on to the actual proposal part?
Yeah, I actually have a question. It's Chad over here. I'll put my camera on. Obviously, there's a lot to take in. So when I speak for me, when I obviously got certified to be a driver's ed instructor, did we not do the Miller Road test already? Did we not do the test on the last day, or we have to do it again?
You did. You did it whenever you started that whole process. The way that the admin code is written, it lets us waive it for anybody that did it before who is seeking just instructor certification. It does not let us waive it for people that are seeking instructor trainer certification. So the way it is written, we're having the lawyers look at it, but the way it is currently written, you would have to do it 1 more time. We can waive it for the instructor license. We cannot waive it for the instructor trainer license.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
John, in respect to what you just said about the renewal, a person gets their license, gets their certificate in February, and the business has to renew in March.
So in that particular case, they'd have to pay the $16 initially, right? They get it, and then they've got to pay to renew it again for another 2 years for what is it, $16 every 2 years.
So obviously, it's a timing issue. So if they knew who they were partnering with when they expire, if they could wait and make it more effective, then that's of course what they need to do.
A curriculum question, if you don't mind, was try to wait to the end for all these, but there's a tremendous amount of information. I don't know if you mind taking questions during the presentation or not. You've probably given this so many times that you could do it in your sleep. Regarding the curriculum, at the end of the training program is a written test, and then the middle road test. The written test is the requirements of passing a training program is passing the written test. So the curriculum that the training school is providing is information toward that, right? But if in the training program that the commercial training school provides, it needs to be such. But what about those who choose to teach the STEP program? Would that be? I'm just wondering how they would do that, or do they need to wait until that piece has been satisfied before they move into another curriculum?
So the written state exam that the admin code requires us pass is written towards people that go through just the 80-hour bare bones program that comes from us, right? If you guys are going to expand it, and again, you would have the freedom to do whatever curriculum you wanted to do, right? Even if you threw the STEP program in it, lock, stock, and barrel, you could do that, right? The written exam is always going to be our written exam. But then in terms of how do you prepare them for that written exam if you've done the STEP program, right? There's study material for it. It's a pretty bare bones basic. This is how driver's education works. This is, the basic legalities surrounding it. There are some questions that are geared more towards what we have in terms of, how does certification work? How does some of the admin code stuff work? But there are study guide training materials that we give anybody for a class that we could give folks that provided that they put a little bit of effort into study for it, they should be able to pass it with a minimum of effort, really.
And pardon me for probably asking you to repeat something, but is that decision, is that etched in code in number 5, the responsibilities?
The code does say that they have to pass our written exam. That's what it says.
Okay.
In order for us to be able to certify it. So it's important to remember that we are essentially, again, thinking outside the box to find a creative solution, right? If we were to do this, you guys would have your flexibility to do your own curriculum, but we still have to be able to check the box for the minimum stuff to license you through us, right? So, which is where the Miller Road test and the written exam comes in. But again, we can give the same study materials that we give to anybody else. And again, with a minimum of study and effort, most folks are, whenever we gave it last year, 104 folks came to class, 103 folks passed it, right? So with a minimum of effort and study, they can learn the basics to pass the exam if they put some effort into it. Anybody else have any questions so far?
Hey, Jared, John, glad y'all are here. Just back to the training, because we're level 5 training, driving school. So you're saying that a school system that doesn't work with a commercial driving school comes to us to train their instructors? Is that the way I understood that, or how?
So what the proposal essentially is, how it actually gets implemented is going to be up to the parties in question a little bit, right? It can be done a number of ways. If DPI as a whole wants to pick a commercial school to partner with, right? And so then all that is essentially happening with the commercial school is DMV and School Bus and Traffic Safety is saying, if you are willing to take on DPI or a specific LEA's instructors, right? Put them on your roster as saying that they work for you on paper so that we can certify them, right? And then they're going to go train instructors. So they're not going to go through your program per se. They don't have to be licensed through you. Okay. For instance, Durham Public Schools went and found one that, is not currently level 5. That's going to sign up to be level 5 just so Durham can put their instructors on paper as being licensed through this particular commercial school, right? So then they don't have to go through your training program. They're just going to be on paper as working for your school so we can license them and then they can go train DPI's curriculum if they so choose.
So and then that means that, but they've still got to go back through us for the 2-year renewal.
Yeah, they're still going to have to act like instructors, right? We're shoehorning them in basically. Is we're thinking outside the box to offer a potential solution.
And just from my thinkings is that of course it's an expense for us to train instructors. So that's another thing. We've got to get into that whole area, but we'd have to charge a fee for that. Okay. Yeah.
Just a quick note on the for the committee members and those who are listening online is that there are 18 commercial schools that can do train their own teachers. There are 5 of those that are partners with the public schools right now. So in essence, the districts who partner with a commercial school that can train, there are 67 of those counties. So we're looking at 44% of the remaining counties that do not have a cook training school partner right now. That's what we're looking at. So just to put that in a little bit of context for everybody.
And it really does depend on how advantageous all the parties involved want to work it to their particular priorities, right? We hear from commercial schools that commercial schools can use more instructors, right? If you look at it on paper, if this were to be a thing, then potentially DPI gains instructors, but these folks are going to come out also licensed to where it all depends on how they fill out the paperwork, right? If they fill out the paperwork at the end of the day to add just a 096 to their licensure and go work for DPI, they can do that. If they fill out the paperwork to come work for ABC driving school, they can potentially work for both, which means at the end of the day that they've got another income stream, and the commercial schools also stand to gain instructors if it works out that way, right? Both parties can benefit potentially if they choose to look at it from that point of view.
John,
Sir.
I've been teaching instructors about 34 years. I had a master's degree in driver education. I had to go to community college and sounds pressed. So it's green. But anyway, I had to go to the community college to teach.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I had taught driver education in public schools 14 years, they still required to pick community college where I'm from, paid me to teach my instructors.
Mm-hmm.
So look at that thing about, the 5 years. I would like to have the same opportunity that you have also if we could do Zoom classes.
Mm-hmm.
I got a class starting March the 10th, and it costs a lot to house people and pay them a stipend. If we could do Zoom like y'all do, it would help financially. It's not the best, but it would help tremendously. Just a thought.
So are you asking us if it's okay if you host online driver training courses?
Just
There's
1 week Zoom.
There's nothing in the admin code that says that you can't host online instructor training courses. Okay. There's, and this goes in all of the stuff that prohibited, but let's not even talk about non-instructor stuff at this point, right? There's nothing in the 500 series of governance for classes that says that you can't, right? So there's no reason they can't. Yeah, as long as it's instructor led, it can't be pre-recorded, right? But as long as it's instructor led and it's involved and you've got them in there and you're having class, there's nothing that says that you can't do it that way.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments, questions?
You're not through, are you?
No. Halfway through. believe
There's,
there's gonna-
I know there's more.
No,
There's more.
but yeah, that was the setup, right? So we've already covered part of the proposal, right? The proposal is, I mean, again, we can facilitate, if you choose to go this path, remember, it's just a proposal that we created to try to address the lack of the STEP funding, right? But whether it's DPI partners with a commercial school, whether independent school districts partner with, again, it's just got to be a commercial school that's willing to, that's either already level 5 certified or is willing to put in the paperwork to become level 5 certified and meets the qualifications. The only qualifications in the admin code really to be level 5 is that they've got to be in business for at least 1 year and got to be willing to file to change their license to level 5, right? The DPI LEAs need to have instructors that meet the basic qualifications, meaning that they have to have been licensed for at least 5 years. They have to meet all the other qualifications in terms of, it's all outlined in the admin code. But regarding having a good driving record, so forth and so on, if they're already a driver education instructor, they're going to meet those qualifications that are in the admin code 98% of the time, unless there's something weird, right? We've already talked about how the subparent, yes, ma'am.
John, before you go further, we had a question in the back.
And and so they have to, they don't train them there enough. And they have to work with them. And we will have to with that.
Okay.
And we want to keep it within.
Right. The only path we have towards licensing instructors is if it's in conjunction with a commercial school. We cannot license, for instance, it'd be easier if we could just say DPI, we're a commercial school and do that, right? But DPI is not a commercial school. All we're allowed to do by the law is license instructors through a private commercial school. I would say, if you're having issues with the ones that are in your immediate geographic area, clearly we've established that online education is not really an issue. If there's another one somewhere that's not one that you're having an issue with for non-compete that you reach out to, then you may have better luck than with some of those you're dealing with right there locally to you, if that makes sense. Like, for instance, it does not have to be one that is located even within your county. All you have to do is have one somewhere that says, yeah, you can operate under us, check the box, and you'll be good to go. Well, I mean, they have to just go through any of the other qualifications anybody else does for renewal credit. They have to file the paperwork through that commercial school to be licensed under them. But in terms of getting the required hours for recertification, they can get that from anywhere like anybody else does. Yep.
When we go forward, just for clarification, for the in-house programs that we're talking about, most impacted by this is that we have the list of 18 schools minus the 5 that are already partnering with the school district, local school districts. My plan is to prepare a next steps guidance for all of you all, and that you would have access to all of those schools that are eligible to do this. So that's one part of it. So thanks.
John, I think it's John. I don't know if it's going to help or not, and I don't want to waste time if you think it's not going to help, but could you kind of give us a really short rundown on how Durham did it? Like, what were the steps that Durham did to become certified?
So Durham essentially reached out to a commercial school that operates in their county that their driver education coordinator had a friendly relationship with. That commercial school in question was not already level 5 certified, but was willing to upgrade their certificate to level 5. They met the requirements for that. And that's all it took, was that commercial school being willing to say, yeah, you can be listed under us. We meet the qualifications to be level 5. They upgrade their certificate. And then Durham submitted their first instructor to be considered for the process to go from there.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. One quick clarification on that is the teachers, the trainers, candidates that go through the level 5 school, they can get their certification through the level 5 school, but the teachers that they train can actually go through a different driving school, can't they? Can they not?
They can go through any driving school that they want to, right?
Correct.
So again, once the instructor is licensed, right? Okay, then they go through that process. They come out. It would be just like anybody else going through either our basic school or Jordan's basic school. You name it. It's all the equivalent process.
Can I say one more thing? One thing about I want to say one more thing, Carl. Is a great idea, I think, but the issue I see logistically listening to others is you got to remember there has to be road work done. It's not all classroom work. So it's the road work, that's going to be a logistical issue if you're reaching far out to a driving school, not in your area. So,
yeah. And again, that is one thing to consider, right? It's going to take some work to meld. Again, it's never been done before. It's going to have to meld a couple of processes together. We have looked at it and have figured out a way to make it work on our end. Clearly, other folks are going to have to figure out the practicalities of making it work on other ends. We've already talked about how our admin code lets us waive a lot of the stuff for people that are already accredited to start the process that have the 096 on their teaching certificate. We talked about how those instructors could train driver's education instructors. The good news is that if this were to happen, the DPI LEAs gain their own path to train their own instructors, right? We've had the conversation again to where you can expand beyond that. And those instructors can potentially benefit the commercial schools if they choose to make that happen. Because again, they come out of it, how they file their paperwork. If they file paperwork for both, they can be licensed under both. If they come out and just file DPI paperwork, they're just going to teach for DPI, so forth and so on. That last paragraph there, again, that is the huge selling point, is that if this goes through, it lets DPI LEAs train their own instructors on their own schedule. You're not limited by school bus and traffic safety is weird, funky. We do it a couple weeks through the summer, right? You gain your own flexibility to do that. Things that we have to consider, right? We talked about how you have to be partnered with a commercial school. We talked about how the process for certification would be identical. When we talk about commercial schools that can be partnered with, right? The requirements are that the school has to be licensed for 1 full year prior to approval. The work must be done, all work must be done with an instructor licensed as an instructor trainer, right? So for instance, you can't say John Fink is an instructor trainer, Terry Fuller is not, but because John Fink is here, Terry Fuller is going to do something, right? John Fink has to be the one doing the instructing. The administrative code, right, does say that these commercial schools that are going to apply to be level 5 commercial schools, they have to submit a plan of operation. It is fairly vague here, right? They have to say, we're going to train people to use effective training methods. We're going to train people in writing lesson plans. It does say they have to review our subchapter 03I, the rules of governing the licensing of commercial training schools. That comes into the whole thing where that helps them pass the written test at the end of the process. You have to say that you're going to teach people how to use audio-visual equipment, teaching aids. You have to go over the process to fill out commercial school forms, which is as much fun as filling any other state paperwork. And then you have to list the names of instructor trainers to be employed by the training program. So all that is saying is that if you go find a different commercial school that's not already level 5, right, and they want to apply for it, whenever they're filling out their application, they have to list the names of people that are going to be employed in the training program, right? That's all that means in a nutshell. Any questions about that? That's pretty self-explanatory. That brings us to our ask, right? This is the other elephant in the room, right? We all know about vision and medical screenings, right? We all know that vision and medical screenings have been a hot topic for years. We all know that in 2022, the legislation was changed and 2088-1 was updated to where people that are trained by us can do vision and medical screenings. Since October of 2022, we have trained 1,035 people across the state to do vision and medical screenings, okay? Despite that, there are still some private companies that don't want to do the vision and medical screenings. There are still some school systems that don't want to do the vision and medical screenings for whatever reason. If we're going to take this on, if we're going to facilitate this process, if we're going to send our people out to do 2 hours of in-classroom observation and 2 hours of in-car observation and all this, that, and the other, and give the written test and the Miller Road test and all this, that, and the other, we need for DPI to take the vision and medical screenings away from us for however that happens, okay? Whether it is you work with your contractors to make sure that they're going to always do the vision and medical screenings, or if you have people in each school system that are going to do them instead. However that happens, there are more than 1,000 of them across the state. We got 78 people. Y'all are much better equipped to do the screenings than we are at this point, okay? But if we're going to spend the hours going out and doing the observations and the written test and the Miller Road testing, we need to find a way that all that vision screening eventually moves from us to other sources. You want to speak more on that?
Topic. Regarding the vision testing, well, actually, just for clarification on everyone, is that the state superintendent administered the driver education program to all the local schools. The local schools have the ability or have the charge with administering the driver ed program, and we really can't exactly tell them what to do. However, we can highly recommend and let them know the reason why. Because obviously we're all in the same group that we're trying to educate kids as best we can and facilitate the learning process. The question I have is moving forward with the, that was a statute, wasn't it? Allowing I was going to say administrative code. I was hoping it was. So if it's in statute, then it must be a licensed teacher to do this instead of just someone at the district.
Well, so the statute says that it's either got to be it's got to be a licensed driver education instructor, right? It's either got to be a representative of the division or a licensed driver education instructor, either by State Board of Education standards or by the standards outlined to be certified through us. And then if you go dig in the admin code's even a little more flexible. The admin code says it's got to be medical personnel or representatives.
I was going to ask to see if you all have the opportunity to go back to the legislature and see if they would update that to stretch it to what the admin code says, or include language to where it's more flexible, that someone of the medical field or someone designated at the school system, as opposed to a licensed person or certified teacher that's gone through the program.
Whenever we looked at the admin code last time, and it was where school nurses could do it.
Yes.
Because they fall under medical personnel. So that is the only loophole available to us with how the admin code's written, given power by the statute, is that school nurses could do it because they fall under medical personnel as indicated by the admin code.
It wasn't impacted by the reduction or elimination of the code language?
No, because all that part's separate. It's a different place. The only part that impacted was the under 18 stuff, the stuff about RIPS and vision screenings is untouched.
I want to elaborate just a little bit on this ask, is that the eye checks themselves are very basic. It takes little time to do a student. what is the time suck for my DEPSs who, since coming on to the manager position over a year ago, just a little over a year ago, is a matter of efficiency. And a lot of times we're training on the other side of the county. And when you get in Mecklenburg, that is a huge deal. So it takes a lot away from bus driver training, which is our pretty much our primary focus, to travel, stop, do what we're doing, travel to the other side of the county to get these eye checks done. We're not there too long. Sometimes we get multiple groups and do as many as we can, which creates an overtime situation. We do them in the afternoons, and then our folks have to travel back through the heavy congested traffic, which we end up getting more and more and more overtime, which is not a problem, but it is a matter of efficiency of going from one place to the other just to do eye checks. So this ask is a little bit selfish, but it's helping both parties out tremendously for scheduling, as you might can see the problem. If I have a DEPS that falls out one day, then we try to cover. There's no telling where we may even have to go to another county to pull a DPS in to cover that, because what we don't want to do is inconvenience hundreds of parents and their kids of us not showing up to do those eye checks.
Questions about that, Friday? We good?
She'll show.
Sometimes I ask questions that I already know the answers to. All right. I just wanted to hear Terry say that.
Okay.
Long enough, Carl.
Possible issues that we identified, right? We've already talked about how any potential instructor trainer has to be licensed, active licensed instructor for 5 years. Again, the code is vague, doesn't say what that to be licensed by. Has on there maybe waivable by the commissioner. It's not waivable by the commissioner. We checked on that after we wrote this. Potential commercial school partners have to have been licensed and in business for at least 1 full year. Okay, again, there are 18 currently, right? It does not necessarily have to be one of those 18 if that's not how it works out. It just has to be one that's willing to put in the paperwork and meet those qualifications. We've covered the fact that it's 16 years for licensure, renewed essentially every 2 years. And again, I know I explained this once, it's weird, admin code's weird, but again, it's written like a business, right? So it makes it easier for the business if all of the licenses expire on the same date, as opposed to my license expires in January, Terry's license expires in March, Kevin's license expires in July, whatever, having that one date they all expire on. So once everybody got on the same date for every 2 years, that would take care of that. Again, the only weird one would be if they signed up for it, let's say that they got licensed in March and the business license expires in July, then yeah, they're going to pay that $16 for the first couple months. But when they pay the $16 the second time, it's good for 2 years and so forth. We've talked about how there'd be an increase in need for written and road tests by school bus and traffic safety. We can't waive those tests. That is one reason why, again, we're asking to look on taking all of the vision screenings. Same thing for observations by school bus and traffic safety personnel. There's going to be 4 hours of observation for each potential instructor trainer. One thing that we've looked into that we've not gotten an answer yet is that down the road, right, DPI has got a lot of people that have experience in observing instructors. Is there a way down the road, if this takes off, that maybe we could offload some of that observation to where DPI personnel that are trained in observation could take that on? We've not gotten the required legal input on that yet. It was just our thought that clearly DPI has folks that do lots of teacher observations. Maybe part of that could be transferred, but we've not gotten clear guidance on that yet. So one of the questions we got were the instructor trainers be paid while the training instructors were partnered with the commercial schools. That's got to be worked out between the commercial schools, the instructor trainers, and DPI. Clearly, DMV is not going to get involved with money side of this. Same thing of would the instructor trainers be paid while teaching instructors for DPI LEAs? That's got to be worked out. Who would pay the instructor trainers if they're being compensated? Again, that's going to have to come between, a different funding source. That's not coming from DMV. DMV is not offering to pay for this in any way, shape, or form, because trust me when I say we don't have the money. Those are the potential issues that we saw moving forward with it as we went through it, some of the questions we got. And then again, this is just a step-by-step outline of what it's going to take, right? You got to partner with one or more commercial schools. The commercial schools got to meet the minimum eligibility for instructor training. The driver education instructors have got to meet the potential or the qualifications. The big one, again, they have to have 5 consecutive years as an active licensed instructor. That's the biggie that we can't get around. They are exempted from all other instructor requirements listed in the admin code because they're going to be already, certified through the State Board of Education. We can't waive the written test and the Miller Road test and the $16 fee. Observations we've already talked about there, so we're good. We talked about how they can train either party provided that they fill out both sets of paperwork. We've talked about the recertification needs as outlined in the handbook. Everything else works the way that it currently does in terms of licensure, so we've covered that. And then just as far as wrapping it all up, right? It seems to be a reasonable path forward if both parties need instructors, depending on how you want to implement it. We've already covered how we don't have the capacity to offer more basic schools, but this is something that we can do. And we can certify people that meet the requirements until the cows come home. When we've talked about the need for DPI, other parties take on responsibility for the screenings. That's because of the time we're going to put in for the observations and the testing. And hopefully in the end, if it worked out, everybody would win, right? You guys would get a path towards instructor training. You got the potential for more commercial instructors if you choose to go that path. And it helps us take the vision screenings off our plate so that we can not have to run around and leave the school bus training early to go do that. That helps us out there so everybody gets something that they want. So that's about all I've got as far as that goes. So hit me with more questions.
So I had a question about the budget. You said, obviously you don't have money, and I get that. We're talking about $16. Is there any more extra fee other than the $16 fee for somebody that potentially wanting to be an instructor?
Yep. Each instructor is looking at $16 out of pocket.
So there's no fee for the trainer, for whoever's training these folks?
It's just as far as licensing goes on our end, it's just $16, right? In terms of how much, whatever potential costs, it depends on how, Durham could probably speak to the arrangement they made with their particular commercial school better than I can. I don't have the specifics, right? But however it's worked out with the partnership with whatever commercial school or schools you partner with, then how much that costs, if it costs anything, you'll have to work that out between yourselves.
If you projected, and Carl, you may even know this answer, how many instructors would you see if this came to fruition and people stepped up, became those?
From our perspective, it's limited only by the number of people that you have interested in being driver education instructors, right?
Right.
Because, and Carl, you speak more to how, what your numbers look like. I don't know.
Yes, so got a number of things that will draw a little bit of all the committee members into the conversation. Immediately, we did a survey last October, and we found that we have just over 1,000 teachers. In 2014, we had 1,600 teachers. When this was in the school back in the early 90s and 80s, there were 2,400 teachers. We've got twice as many kids as we do, as we had then. So we've fallen off pace on keeping up with the demand of students, which is part of the reason that we have a tremendous backlog now. There are, during the pandemic, or prior to the pandemic, I'll say that, there was approximately 1,100 teachers. We got our STEP program started. We went to 1,300. And then we just lost this. That's the information I shared with you. That's the thing. During the pandemic, obviously, we lost a bunch of teachers, and then now we're back in that spot again where we're losing teachers again. As far as from the survey that we participated in, or our districts participated in, we found that there are at least 100 vacancies out there right now, and that there are expected to be 200 in the next couple of years. And then obviously with retirements, our teaching average age is over retirement age. So we're in a serious position. The question I wanted to allow Mr. Jordan or Mr. Moore is that the cost of training the teachers, I know that, I know the answer to this. What is the cost that it takes you to train your teachers?
Carl, I don't know if I can put a number on it per se, but the issue is just taking away just another personnel from that. I have one person. We have 5 licensed trainers, but I have one that pretty much heads it up, and it's constant. So you're thinking, I really couldn't give you an answer. I know you asked me this before, but it is an expense. It's not, and the issue is we would be a third party or a second party going through it. So that's always another expense instead of a direct amount. So I would say it's going to be costly, because for us to train, just ballpark figure, it usually is anywhere from $500 to $750. Just do one in-house within our program. So I don't know that I could answer if expanding it outside.
Our cost runs between $3,500 and $4,000. Pay them while they're in class. And we require them to do so many hours after they're taking the test. They have to observe so many hours in the classroom with another teacher. And then observe other teachers behind the wheel. So it's expensive. We got 41 vacancies at this time. Try to do no more than 10 at a time. There are 4 of us veterans that teach this class, take turns, and it's challenging in today's world to find people because of the hours that you work. School systems, they get out so late in the school day, it's even more difficult. The 9 o'clock makes it very difficult for teachers too. I will say that this information, 1997, Janice Faulkner asked me, Commissioner Motor Vehicles, to help change the laws for commercial schools, because up to that time, we could only teach 1 student at a time. And we were working with school systems. School systems said you could have 2 in the car, but no, commercial schools only allowed 1 person in the car at that time. It's food for thought. It is very expensive. It's very challenging because of the cost of motor vehicles has gone up 250% in 4 years. And unless the funding changes, we got troubles ahead. You've got to have more funds. It says, I saw a report only 63% of people take the course. It's because of the economics of the children you teach in the public schools. Thank you.
Just to tack onto that, some of you know that Mrs. Jordan's sister also has a driving school, and we were discussing this one time, and she said it was just over $1,000 per teacher, and they're having to do this or offer several training classes per year of at least 15 or so in there, and I think you all had DMV had a minimum number of teachers that you need in the classroom to be cost effective. So that's a tremendous challenge in that. And so this proposal actually helps to offset some of that, obviously, but there are still costs involved.
And Carl, I can add to that. The numbers are pretty consistent, what I said, because the biggest thing is as you guys taught, when we're training somebody, we're obviously following what DMV requires us, but I am training an employee to come kind of work in our business. So that's where that cost adds up. And I think that will be something that the outside school systems, it would just be there's really no way to put an exact number on it, but there will be a cost. But I think it's got some validity, the program.
Just one more question regarding the actual training process. The teachers that go through this particular program opportunity who would receive a certificate through DMV, does this apply to those who have professional teacher's license also? They don't have to renew through a year, do they? Okay.
So the people, if this comes to fruition, right, it would work the same way that it used to work whenever DPI sent people through one of our commercial schools, right? They would come out of the basic school, and if they filled the paperwork and sent it to the state board, they're going to add the 096. They go through you for recertification, however that happens. They don't fall under us. They're only going to fall under us if they choose to fill out the paperwork and then also get licensed under school bus and traffic safety. What you're going to have to worry about is that the instructor trainers are going to be licensed through a commercial school through school bus and traffic safety. They will have to renew that instructor trainer certificate through us every 2 years, following that criteria laid out in the admin code.
Okay. As far as renewals, continuing that line of thinking, the State Board of Education has criteria on license renewals. It is general education, and then there's content area. As we move forward with continuing to look at alignment of the two programs, are you up to, or are you willing to look at aligning the professional development type programs? I don't know if yours is etched in code or is it policy on the type of professional development. Give you an example: CPR or classroom management, stuff like that.
So ours is a little more, what's the best way to describe it? It's vague yet set in stone, right? It says that we can, beyond all of the criteria for, let's see, stuff that they can get credit for. It essentially says that we can, provided that they apply for prior approval and then submit once they've completed whatever we approve, as long as it is in the field of driver education, if it's not already on that list, then we can give it consideration, right? But what we have, one of the things that we're looking at now is that there has been a list that has gone around before, and it had things like CPR and first aid on it and stuff like that. And whenever we go back and look at the admin code and for stuff that we were giving credit for before, we can look at things like CPR and first aid and go, hey, yeah, that looks really, really important. But by what we're allowed to give credit for, it's not driver education oriented, right? It's great. And yes, you'd want all your employees to have it, but we're not necessarily allowed to give credit for it because it's not driver education oriented. So it's provided you can make it driver education oriented, then we can look into professional development for it. But we can't just say, hey, because it's education related, we give credit for it, if that makes sense. We have some flexibility, but it's got to be within those guidelines.
So one of the things that I've been, really focused about is making sure that we're adhering to the admin codes. 100%. I don't want somebody to come to me and say, why are you doing this? It's outside the admin code. So we started looking at what we're allowing, what has previously been allowed, and we're making adjustments. So we've made a concession to allow the CPR now, and we're going to propose a cutoff date. And then from there, it'll have to be an approval based on the admin code.
How often do you all request updates to your admin code?
Just come up again in 2028.
2028, yeah.
Wow.
But with that being said, process starts a year or two ahead, right? True. Yeah. So it's going to be here before we know it.
It's not an easy process.
I know we're in the middle of it now. So my thoughts were that we would collaborate and try to align the administrative rules so that we can align the program, because right now, obviously, there's two different programs in the state, and two different sets of rules that govern those. Well, anyway, but the next steps part, if you don't mind, that I'm going to do my best to create some next steps. I will send it to you all. You can edit it. Because we're trying to educate the 48 districts who this impacts the most. And that so that we can kind of somewhat mitigate the number of phone calls that we're going to get when they decide to go through it. Right now, they don't need anyone, but when they do, they want to be provided some hand-holding individually. At any rate, as you all can understand and understand the complexities of what we're trying to do here is that the program itself, the traffic safety education program that's offered in our public schools, is in a critical position. We appreciate you all for coming up with this proposal. There is nothing in administrative rules or policy that prohibits our local schools from using this idea. So I'm sure that we're going to have some folks who are going to be reaching out and asking for some guidance on this very soon. I have told seems like hundreds of teachers who have called me recently wanting to be licensed to teach driver education. I've told them that I'm going to provide that information to the local administrative coordinators for driver education, and that they will be the key or the contact points. Again, the state superintendent administers the program to the public schools, but they have to administer the program the best way they see fit there. So one note I wanted to remind everyone is that if this program were to fail, which if the most important part of the program is the teachers outside of the students, obviously. If we don't have teachers, then my fear is that the legislature will decide to do something drastically, like cut the program. There are currently, according to the list that DMV has provided me, is that there are 56 counties in this state that do not have a commercial driving school in it at the moment. Now, they may have some branch offices here and there, but there are 56 counties that do not have access to professional traffic safety education. That's the big fear. How does that impact us all? A lot, because we're all road users. So again, thank you for bringing that to us. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, wisdom, always as a, what we're setting my bounds on. Carl.
I'm sure Chad is going to say something.
No, but thank you for the presentation.
Not a matter.
I yield back, I'm sorry.
Is someone talking still? No, I thought someone was talking. So yet again, great presentation, and anything that you guys could do with partnership with DPI, as Carla just said, is very beneficial. So we appreciate you guys thinking outside the box. All right, Dr. Leonard, it's all you.
Okay. Again, thank you all for being here, our special guest, and all your infinite wisdom that you've provided to us so we can carry on and move forward. We're always looking for another group that would like to present next meeting. I think we've got scheduled on May 20th from 10 to 12 right here in this room. Correct.
I hope so.
We hope so. But we will let you know as time gets closer. If you have any questions or things that come up in the interim before that meeting, please feel free to notify Carl and myself, and we'll see what we can do to assist. So thank you all again. Be careful for tomorrow. There's an expectation of lots of white stuff coming from the clouds. And as you can tell, I'm quite excited about that, which is not the same philosophy that is shared by my colleagues at DOT. They are not happy that I am happy. So bring on the ice, snow, and ice again. So y'all be careful out on the road. Stay home.
Dr. Leonard, is the rumor true that everyone that showed up in person, Carl's taking out for lunch for his birthday? Is that true?
That is true.
Rumor.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
you guys enjoy. Give me 45 minutes. I'll be in Raleigh. Now I'm coming.
All right.
Yeah, we'll wait on you.
All right. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Jordan, we'll get around to you.